Hello, and welcome to the Courageous Self-Care Experience, the podcast for high-achieving, spiritually curious women who are done with burnout, over the hustle, and ready to feel totally amazing again. Life may look perfect on paper, but if your inner world feels like a hot mess in yoga pants, this show is your sacred space. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On today's show, we're doing something new. I did interview my beloved mentor and friend, Debra Poneman. And so we're going to go right into the interview. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy. Okay, so I am so excited to have my beloved mentor and good friend Debra Poneman here with us. Deborah, thank you so much for taking time to be a guest on the show. And I just have to say, like, Deborah is, um, she was talking about the law of attraction before you ever heard what it was. She's the founder of Yes to Success and Ageless and the Awake Method and so many other uh, integral programs that have changed so many lives. Like a lot of household names owe their fame and success to Deborah. And I have to say, when Deborah came into my life, everything got better. It totally changed the trajectory of my life. I was a student in your Year of Miracles, and I got to know Deborah really well. She's the self-proclaimed #1 fan in my kids' fan clubs. And it's so beautiful to have someone who cares about my kids' success as much as I do. So, Deborah, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you share your wisdom and to, yeah, just get to marinate in your beautiful presence.
Well, thank you so much. And it's very easy to be the president of your kids' fan club because they are so exceptional. Both of them. I mean, I just marvel at who they are. But they've been so exceptional since they were little. I mean, just everything about them. I just, when Oakley was doing his martial arts, remember I came and watched him and it's like, how could a kid that young be that good? And then remember, I was there when he first started singing and,
Yes.
and composing music that was jaw-dropping for a kid that age. It was deep, and passionate. And Zoe, don't even get me going on how talented that girl is. Writing, art. Her art is exceptional. Her acting. I mean, good job, Mom. That's all I
Oh,
have to say.
thank you. Thank you. I can take some of the credit. They also, yeah, like you said, they just came out amazing. All right, so let's talk about self-care, courageous self-care, and we'll break it up into a couple of, well, three different questions that I'd love for you to share your insights on. So the first question I have is, what's something courageous that you've done at some point in your life that contributed to your success and led you to where you are today? And the reason that I ask this is because courage is contagious. And when we hear other people's stories of courage, either we say, oh, I've done that. I wouldn't have thought that that was courageous. Yay, me. Or, oh, that's a new way that I could show up and be courageous. So I'd love to hear something that you would consider to be courageous.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that people say, "Oh, I didn't know that was courageous," because I actually didn't know that it was courageous because I just flowed with what was. But I think that it's been an inspiration to a lot of people, and they have used the story to do something that in their life was courageous. And I'll tell you what it was. So, I became a meditation teacher in the early 1970s. And then at the end of that decade, I realized that woman does not live by mantra alone. And I had to make some money. So I moved from my meditation community to LA. I started selling investments because I wanted to make some money so I could go back to teaching meditation. But you know that expression, we make plans and God laughs. Well, God had a big laugh about me making money selling investments. I was not only broke after a few months, I was beyond broke because at least when I was teaching meditation, I was in a community where I got my meals. And I got a little tiny stipend. No such thing when I was selling investments. But this thing about God laughing, we also know that why we do something is not really usually what God has in store for us. And I say the God, spirit, source, the God of your understanding. So I moved to LA to make money, and which I didn't do. But one day I was invited to a money seminar, which I thought would have helped me. And the person was talking about the law of attraction and about how we're like tuning forks. And that if we're talking about, oh, I'm so poor, I'll never get out of debt in my life, I'll never meet my soulmate, you're vibrating like this, and then your soulmate could come towards you where you're just going to repel it. It's just like if an E flat is going to repel a B flat, or an E sharp, I don't know, sharps, flats. But if you are in harmony, if your vibration is in harmony with that soulmate, then that soulmate can come into your life, or that money could come into your life, because like a tuning fork, it's even augmented. So there were so many things that this person said when I went to the seminar on making money that it absolutely blew my mind, because I realized there was this body of knowledge of how to not only create inner silence, which I did through meditation, but outer success. It was systematic. And I just had to follow you know, these prompts, as we say these days, these prompts, and I could create a life of success and prosperity. And I did. I had this realization that what I wanted to do was to teach what the guy was teaching at the seminar. I wanted to teach people how to be successful and how to be prosperous. So I started studying the great masters of success and prosperity, like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Florence Scovel Shinn. And I founded my company, Yes to Success. And this is back in 1980. And this is long before The Secret, long before Esther Hicks was popular with the law of attraction. But people just ate it up because they were ready for it. And there were so many ways that I became successful by implementing what these masters taught me in their books. Like, for example, when you have a great idea, don't go out and tell the whole world. What is sacred must be kept secret. Wait until it germinates. Wait until it's a strong little plant and not a tiny seed that could easily be crushed. So when my idea of starting this company called Yes to Success was strong, that wasn't until then that I told people about it. And the discouragement committee told me, oh, nobody's going to believe a crazy idea like your thoughts create your reality, and create a company out of that. But I hadn't told anybody at the beginning. I had waited. Actually, I waited until I put the posters up for my first presentation at the Santa Monica Public Library. Okay, what did I do that was courageous? That wasn't it. What I did that was courageous is my seminar company just exploded. And within a few short years, I had reps teaching in 9 countries, which was decades before the internet made international communication instantaneous. We didn't even have fax machines, and I still had a presence in 9 countries on 4 continents. And I taught my Yes to Success seminars in 12 major cities. And as you know, our beloved Marcy was my secretary, and our beloved Janet Atwood was my other personal assistant. And I had incredible students, like Deepak Chopra was one of my students. And this just became bigger and bigger. I was about to have my own daytime TV talk show. And Janet was my note taker when I was meeting with the producers in Hollywood. And my Yes to Success book was in the hands of New York publisher. And boom, I gave it all up. Now, people say, you what? Well, what I taught in my seminar is that if you follow your heart, it will always lead you to the ideal outcome. And if you deny what your heart is trying to say, then you will never have true success. And what happened was that I gave birth to my baby girl, and I took one look at her and I thought, new passion. I didn't want to leave her to go to the bathroom, let alone leave her to tape a TV show at 5 o'clock every morning.
Mm.
And I was actually supposed to I got a call from this guy in Southeast Asia because there I was going to go on a big tour of Southeast Asia. His name is Chiang, and he said, "I heard you had the baby. Let's get the tour on the books." I said, "Chiang, you're going to have to call me back in 18 years." And I did retire, and I gave up my career for 18 years. And of course, then I had my son a few years later, just like you.
Yes.
You had your mother, and then you had your son. And people said to me, "Have you gone out of your mind?" And I said, "Yeah, right out of my mind and right into my heart. And when you follow your heart, you will always be led to your ultimate destination." Now, people said to me, "That took so much courage to leave." And I guess it did take courage on the surface level. But to me, it was just the most natural thing in the world. Now, another thing is I did have a husband who made a good living, so it wasn't like we needed my income
Yeah.
to support our lifestyle. But the one thing that I know is that we were all put on earth for a purpose. And your purpose is not going to go away if you take a year to be with your mother while she's making her transition. If you take a year to go to Africa and hold AIDS babies, if you work on a political campaign for 6 months, whatever, what you were put on earth to do is not going away. As a matter of fact, another time where I did something which I guess was courageous, what happened was after those 18 years, my dear Marcy and Janet were on my, I was going to say they were on my butt to get out of retirement and get back and start teaching. And I remember Janet said, "I know you think your kids need you, but the world needs you more than your kids. As a matter of fact, newsflash, your kids don't need you," which was kind of true. I knew, but as you know, I needed them
Yeah.
because they, like one, "I love you, mommy," was worth so much more than a zillion standing ovations. So I kind of didn't want to give that up.
Yeah.
But I did. And I came back. And as you know, I started teaching Your Year of Miracles with Marcy, which was where we met, you and I. And it is such an incredible program. And it is so, I mean, we took it from an idea to one of the most successful programs in the space. And another thing that I did, which was thought to be courageous, was after about 5 years, I had the thought that I wanted to go back to teaching Yes to Success. And people are like, "Are you nuts?" You know, it was successful. It was lucrative. I was working with my darling Marcy and all of you. You were a coach and you are a coach. I mean, there's so many things that were wonderful about it. But my heart said, "Go back and teach Yes to Success." Did I take a pay cut? Yeah. But again, you have to listen to those impulses of your heart. I've had many people say I didn't listen to the impulses of my heart. And boy, I'm glad I didn't. But never. But I have many people who have said, I didn't listen to the impulses of my heart, and I wish that I had.
Hmm.
So I did both times.
Yeah.
And you know what happened with Your Year of Miracles? It turned out even better because the wonderful Sue Morter came online, and Lisa Nichols came online, and Lisa Garr came online. And it's even more tremendous than it was. Well, I know you guys missed me a little
Of
bit,
course.
but
Yes.
but but again, it's all has to do with self-love, self-care, self-nurturing.
Hmm.
If you
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Deborah. It um makes me so deeply grateful that I met you because actually courageous self-care was born in your presence. We had a
That's right, at
yeah,
Marcy's house. I
we got
remember.
a day with Marcy and Deborah as part of the inner circle when I was a participant, and I had lost Dance Ugly, Dance Awkward thanks to my website getting hacked and blacklisted by Google. It's very dramatic. And I had the idea on the plane ride over to have something called courageous self-care. And I remember you and Marcy asked me, "Well, what do you want to do? Like, you get to decide." And I really dropped into my heart and I felt, "Oh, it's courageous self-care." And I started to cry. And you said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, Oh, because people are just going to think I'm so flaky. I've already changed businesses several times, and but you know what? It doesn't matter what they think. It matters what my heart is telling me. So I totally resonate with every decision you made there, that it is very courageous. It's courageous to follow your heart regardless of what other people are going to think. Like we can't live that way, but it's so tempting. And often we just grow up living for others and not even knowing that there are whispers coming through the heart. So I love that you gave three very real and concrete examples of following your heart is the way to go.
Yeah, and people are always going to have a good time talking about you and talking about, oh, da, 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 da. But you know what? I was just telling you, I just read that book by Mel Robbins, Let Them. And if people want to talk about me, let them.
Yes, exactly. I love it. Well, thank you. Okay, so you talked about meditation and cultivating your inner world. So that's my next question is what's an inner world? Like we have external self-care, which is where most focus goes when you're looking at well, that's the commercialization of self-care, lots of external self-care. And I feel like we also have to have a really solid inner world self-care practice. Otherwise, we're just going to go in circles. So, what's an inner self-care practice that you couldn't live without?
Oh, it's probably my favorite question because as you know, like you, I do yoga, I do breath work, I exercise every day, I eat healthy, I intermittent fast, I go on silence courses, I do the work of Byron Katie, I use I'm looking around, my infrared light. I don't eat sugar. I wear things to deflect EMFs. You don't even want to know what I have under the shirt. But if God came down and said, you can only keep one practice, it would definitely be my meditation. You know, I started meditating in October. It's going to be 55 years.
Wow.
And I have hardly missed a day. Maybe when I was in labor, I didn't meditate. I probably did. I don't remember.
I think labor is its own form of meditation.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. But the reason why it is the practice that I really can't live without, it's like if you try to build a building and there's no foundation, that building's going to crumble. But the deeper and the more solid the foundation, the bigger and more solid. You could build a skyscraper that is going to withstand, hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes if the foundation is solid. And the meditation that I do, that I recommend, either transcendental meditation, which I taught for decades, or Sahaj meditation, Sahaj, Sahaj meditation through the Art of Living Foundation, which is what I teach now. But they're very similar. They come from the same tradition, but they're transcending meditations. So, what you do in these meditations, it's not like visualizing, it's not like, now put your attention between the eyebrows, because those are all above the surface. Those are thoughts that we're having.
Mm.
These are mantra meditations, and the vibration of the personal mantra that you're given, it takes your mind inward, 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 inward until you transcend thought altogether and you arrive at this unbounded field of bliss. It's like the vacuum state in physics. It's the fullness of emptiness, but it's from where all creation arises. So you become a master of creation because you contact that area that is the source of everything every day. And also, it's unbounded silence. So when you dive in and you come out and you dive in and you come out day after day, that silence comes out with you. So now, Maurice used to use the example that when something happens in your life, it's like a line on stone. It's like you can't stop thinking about the when you put your foot in your mouth, you said something stupid, you hurt somebody. Every time you think about it for years, for decades, you can contract again. But as your nervous system becomes more silent and more flexible, because this meditation also throws off deep rooted stress and fatigue, that same thing can happen, but it's like a line on water. it happens, but the impression is gone. So you could think about it and it's just another thought. And it's not like, it's just like, oh yeah, that happened. So for so many reasons, I I've been a teacher of meditation now, also for 53 years. I've taught thousands of people, and it is my non-negotiable.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing so deeply about that. I love knowing more than like just you should meditate. So that is a beautiful explanation of how we connect with the void, with energy of creation. It gives a really good insight into why we would want to do it. And I love it. I also meditate every day. Actually, also because of your year of miracles, I remember at one point I was dabbling in meditation, and then some days I do it, some days no. And Marcy said one day, if you're too busy to meditate, you're just too busy. And that just went right in. And I've meditated every day since. It is also a non-negotiable for me. Even if it's just a snippet of time, it's absolutely worth it to connect with the
One
energy of creation.
one of my great teachers said, if you don't have time to meditate for 20 minutes, then you should meditate for 1 hour.
I love that. So true. Yes.
And it goes along with what you teach, encourages self-care. You
Yes.
know, if you don't have the time to take care of yourself for like 10 minutes a day, then you should be taking care of yourself for a lot more than 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yes. Excellent point. Okay, great. So let's go into the final question. You are a highly productive person. You're very, um, like you create a lot, you teach a lot, and you're a high achiever, which is one of the reasons I love you. I definitely resonate. And like you made it okay to be that way for me and not make it something like, the or the expression most people use is overachiever, which has a negative connotation, but high achiever is so okay. So, being a high achiever, how do you find harmony between being that productive and then also taking good care of yourself?
You know what's so great about this question is that what some people consider taking care of themselves is completely the opposite of what other people. I look at your life. First of all, I love that distinction between, you know, being overwhelmed and being, what did you say? What do
An
we use?
overachiever.
Overachiever to being a high
High achiever.
achiever.
Yeah.
You are the master of words. You know you're my favorite writer. You are the master of words, and I love your blog. Anybody who is listening, if you do not get this blog that Christine writes every week, you've got to. I like devour it. You know, I quote from it. I do. It's so brilliant. You're such an amazing writer. And actually, you said something this week that just blew my mind. I thought it was, oh, I know what it was. It was um, something that about a good way to have your own self care is have something to look forward to. Oh my God, that blew my mind. Have something to look forward to because I realize, like, when I know I'm going to go visit my kids, or I know that I'm going to, watch a Fever basketball game. I'm a Fever basketball fan. Canada's going to be getting a WNBA team soon.
Yes.
Yes, so it's like when I have something to look forward to, that's so nourishing to me. But what's nourishing to one person is not necessarily what's nourishing to another. I look at your blogs and you are forever going hiking and like walking on these little tiny ridges. And I'm like, that is like if someone gave me $1 million, I wouldn't walk on a little tiny ridge or go to. My friend Natalie went to 17,000 feet on some hike in India. I wouldn't go to 7 feet on a hike. It's like so. And I remember one time, Sergio, who's Marcy's husband, when I first moved that, this was decades ago, so I didn't really know Sergio. He didn't know me, and he said, "Oh, you're gonna love living in California. There's so much nature." I said, "Oh yeah, I don't like nature." And he said, "Yeah, I know." What'd you say? I said, "Oh yeah, I don't like nature." He said, "You don't like nature?" And I said, "Yeah, you see one tree, you see them all." And he said to Marcy, "Who is this woman?" Nuts. But you know what makes me happy? I love working. You know what's self-care to me? To write a blog, to make
Mhm.
a video. I'm in heaven when I come up with a new idea. I remember one time the great Byron Katie was staying at, and don't make yourself wrong for it.
Yes.
Don't make yourself wrong because it's not your idea of a good time to take a salt bath. Don't make yourself wrong if you don't like to hike at the ridge. You know, everybody, we're all born with different tendencies. And I remember one time in the early 90s, Byron Katie, you know, Loving What Is, she was staying at my house. She used to stay there when she would do programs in Chicago. I guess that was what, 25 years ago or 20 years ago. And we were in my room, in my living room, and she was leading people in the work. And somebody said, you know, Deborah always works and she needs to take care of herself better. She doesn't take care of herself. She just works, works, works. And she goes, then she said, well, you know, there are three types of business: your business, God's business, like tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes, and other people's business, which is you always worrying about other people. So she explained that in a very gentle, loving way, that it would be good to not be in Deborah's business. But she said, and isn't life just perfect after she did the work with that person? She said, you swim, you walk, you knit, Deborah works. So that's it. You know, do I have time to tell you a story which might take about 4 minutes, or are we towards the end?
Well, if you can condense it to 3 minutes, we can do it.
Okay, I want to tell a story about my friend Dr. Laura Berman because 3 years ago, she lost her son in a very tragic way. She's one of the top experts on love, sex, and relationships. New York Times bestselling author, had her own show on the OWN network. And one day, her son was doing high school at home because it was during COVID. I guess it was 4 years now. And she had three fabulous teenage sons. Her world was just perfect. And she had a great husband. She had lots of success in her business. And Sammy was upstairs studying. And she went upstairs to see if he was ready for dinner. And he was laying on the floor, deceased.
Oh my goodness.
And what had happened was that he had gone out for a walk, which he did every day to get some fresh air. And he was kind of an innocent kid. And some drug pusher on Snapchat preyed on him and sold him some Vicodin, but it was laced with fentanyl. And he took it to impress a girl, and it killed him instantly. And I knew the story. And although now she's been lobbying for laws to be changed around Snapchat and fentanyl, but she shared how, of course, she wished that it didn't happen, but she shared how she now sees innumerable gifts, even in unimaginable tragedy.
Mhm.
And she said that she's not only surviving, but thriving because what she said, I actually interviewed her, and she said, and you will appreciate this, that when her mother died of breast cancer, and she was too busy to grieve. And so she just philosophized it away.
Mhm.
And a year later, she had cancer in the same breast in the same place.
Wow.
So, one of the things that I think about self care is let yourself grieve. Don't worry if somebody thinks that you're not happy all the time.
Mhm.
No, you have to grieve. You have to scream. You have to pound the pillow. We talked about that. We
Yeah.
have to wail. We have to just let those stuck emotions out. And also, she said that the most amazing thing is that she feels like she's a completely new person in one way since Sammy's death, because when the worst possible thing happens to you, she feels there's nothing else to be afraid of. She said,
Mhm.
I'm not afraid of anything. She said, it makes me a little bit harshly honest at times because I don't give up. what other people think anymore. I'm no longer a people pleaser. I can't do anything anymore that's not a full-bodied yes. And then she went on to say that when someone is struggling to make a leap that would feed his or her soul, they have no idea what's going to happen. They could soar, crash, and burn. But the possibility of what other people will think if you crash and burn, you wouldn't take a leap. But now she says she leaps because it's so insignificant. Those crashes and burns compared to losing a child. And now she says, so what if it's not the outcome I intended? She says she's unapologetic about saying no to things she doesn't want to do. She used to think that people wouldn't like her and all hell would break loose if she said no. And now she says she's thriving. How could you not thrive when you're not doing anything you don't really want to do? And I think that is self care. And she says she thinks she learned that people appreciate honesty and integrity more than people pleasing. So to me, being in your integrity, being a no if it's a no, only doing what's a full body yes, that's courageous self care.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Mic drop. Thank you so much for sharing that, Deborah. I wholeheartedly agree. And you've just brought to light so many of the aspects of what courageous self-care is. Yeah, it's just so much more than taking a bubble bath or or even exercising. Like there's just so much that we can work with in the inner world, and it helps us expand, which is what we're here to do anyways.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you. This was just so delightful. I love spending time with you, and especially in a way that's going to be able to spread the word and have an impact. So, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your stories and your experiences and your gifts. So
And,
appreciate you.
and thank you. And I'll have to come and visit you
Yes,
again. And
please.
yes, I'll have to come during Stampede
Or sooner.
or sooner.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me. And
You're
thank
so
you for
welcome.
all the amazing work you do in the world on so many levels. You are a superstar.
Oh, well, learned it from you, so thank you. All right. I will see you again soon. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye for now.